Hello and welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Fara Sax. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but then again, every day is Mental Health Awareness Month, a time to encourage honest conversations about mental health and remind people that support and healing are possible. Today, my guest, Zach, and we are also joined by professionals from the Jewish Community Services of South Florida to discuss resilience, recovery, and the importance of reaching out for help when needed. I want to thank you all for coming today to be with me to discuss this, and happy Mental Health Awareness Month in May.
Sounds good. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Zach, tell me a little bit or a lot of it about your story and how are you connected to the JCS?
It's a funny story how I arrived at the JCS because that wasn't necessarily my first landing post, not because of lack of awareness, but I think I was struggling with a lot of stuff. Family, illness, death, lots of death. And at some point I was talking to my mother, probably rambling a little too much. And she said, listen, I'm not qualified to help you with this. I think you should find someone to help you with this. And I'm like, well, I'm not rich. I can't afford a $150 therapist session every time. She's like, well, reach out to the Jewish Community Services, explain your case, and maybe they can help you. And I was like, that could be an option, you know? So I reached out, explained my case, and they were like, let's see what we can do. And there's a lot of bureaucracy with mental health. I mean, it's not like, hey, I'm hungry, I need food. It's like, my brain is sick and I need help and I don't even know where to begin. But there's not a lot of resources out there that show you how to do that or that it's okay, especially with guys. If you talk about your mental health, they're like, you're in your feelings, bro, you know, take it easy. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, so anyway, so I reached out and they called me back and they said, we have somebody for you. And I was thrilled. Don't worry, Zach, we're going to go through your insurance. We're going to figure out, you know, they really helped me navigate the bureaucracy of getting healthier in my mind. So I meet this woman and she is tough and cool. And I've been to therapy before, but this time I knew my mother was sick, dying of cancer. So prior to losing her, I had already lost previously my sister to an overdose when I was 22. And then maybe 6 years later, my father passed away. So I had already buried 2 out of the 3. So I was like, here comes number 3. Before this really hits me, let me reach out to somebody so I can get some tools to deal with this that are not harmful to me. So it was preemptive. And thank God I did. So I think at first I wasn't sure, but according to my therapist, Sonia, God bless her heart, she was like, you came in here ready to work. Like a lot of people have a lot of resistance to therapy. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't know why I'm here. Or your parents make you go. 2 of my dear friends are like information security specialists. And what they explained to me is like being a human being and never updating your computer is like unbelievable that we have allowed this to be acceptable across our society. So your parents are your first teachers. They can only teach you so much. And what my parents taught me was good enough, but it wasn't enough to get through what life offered me later, not even close. So I think going to the Jewish Community Services was like air. It was like, hey, this is really hard stuff, normalizing it. Here's what we can do about it. Here's what you could do about it. And I can't say that I was a whiner when I came in, but there was a lot of blame. This one, if that happened, you know, my father would say, if grandma had balls, she'd be grandpa. Like there was a lot of ifs, you know, and she helped me get out a lot of that stuff. Like, you're responsible for this. You're a big boy. Let's go here. We got to fix this. Like, how are you going to do this? And yes, these are your problems. This is really tough. But it wasn't like a babysitting session by any means. And I don't think it would have been fixed in a month or 2. The short-term therapy idea, maybe it works for some people who just have a little crisis and they need to get themselves back again. But I think with the type of trauma that I experienced, I needed serious digging. I needed like years of repeating messages and ideas to me because our brains are routed a certain way. So to create new neural pathways took forever, took 5 years.
Did it show up in depression? Did it show up in loss of interest, which is, I guess, part of it, and we'll get into that. But how did it show up for you that, other than mama knows best? I don't know. Mama always knows best what's best for a child, mostly if they're attuned to what's going on. How did it show up for you, though?
Interesting. I think some people, when they're really depressed and they lose it or they snap, they go to drugs or they do harmful things to themselves. Mine comes out in creativity. So thank God that I was blessed with that gift. And I'm an artist. So I had galleries to represent my artwork and show my work. And I'm a photo artist or a lens-based artist. And I think photography now has taken a turn in the arts because it's not, everyone can do it. So it's not as special as it once was. Maybe it never was. So I kept thinking, how do you make a photo series that really matters in a world where photography is so everywhere? So I'm documenting fine art for museums, galleries, artists all throughout the city. And I think part of my healing process was also the community of South Florida. Fortunately or unfortunately, the Latin American community in this city saved my life. They were like, come on, white boy, let's go have a beer or two and relax, or let's laugh, or let's try to dance salsa. So the artist community saved my butt here. And along the journey, I was going to visit my mom in the hospital dying of cancer, and I was photographing Tommy Hilfiger's house. So the split between the economic worlds that I was jumping in between sort of snapped me a little bit. And while I was in these homes, these mega mansions, I couldn't help but notice everyone taking selfies and these fake identity pictures of themselves. And I was single at the time, so I was watching people on dating apps. And I was like, I was just with this person at this house. That's not where they live, this fake identity. So I thought an interesting body of work would be to create, as a straight heterosexual man, fake identity pictures to punch up in my dating apps and see if I could date women above my weight class. So it was like a joke. So for 10 years in secret, I started taking secret portraits in people's houses throughout South Florida. So they would hire me to shoot the house. I would sneak off into their bedroom, put on my mom's cancer wigs and all kind of shit, and lay naked on their beds when no one was paying attention. And that's how I dealt with it. I was like, you guys are making millions of dollars. You're giving me a little crumb. Here you go. And I was Willy Wonka. I was just taking my golden ticket, every house, nobody knew.
So you were getting more hyper creative. So it might have manifested itself in that mania, let's sort of speak.
Correct. Yeah, most people don't do that.
Dr. Jessica, talking about that as the clinical director of Jewish Community Services, from a clinical perspective, how common is it for people to quietly struggle versus become overwhelmingly hypersensitive or hypercreative? What is that balance while you're trying to help them and then keep them safe from themselves and get back on track?
I think a lot of people secretly have difficulties like Zach did, and they don't show up, they don't ask for help, maybe because of stigma, maybe because of childhood things, or they're living their daily life and they're just kind of going with the flow. Mental health is not one size fits all. It's very individualized. And at JCS, that's what we do. We do individualized care for each person, like we did with Zach, because that's what he needed. So in terms of red flags and the things that you were showing up with, where you knew or your friends knew that was an issue, that may not show up for everybody. It shows up very differently. But a lot of people struggle in silence, and they don't know the help is out there.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the stigma, because Zach mentioned when we first landed here together that the stigma of being a male and having this discomfort or mental not 100% feeling, and keeping it in hidden and really keeping it to oneself, and how that can really implode on an individual. Let's address that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the stigma is all there. We live in Miami. This is a very, a community of everybody. And that's why we do highlight our culturally competent therapists, because the stigma is everywhere. It's in Hispanic households, it's in Haitian households, it's everywhere. And so we really want to destigmatize mental health, and that's why we have Mental Health Awareness Month in May, where we go and we do these talks and we go to schools and we talk to students and we talk to parents, because we want to destigmatize that and be able to say the help is out there. You just have to reach out.
Was it always there, Dr. Jessica, or is it now because we're so out with everything, with social media, with 9/11, with the war in Israel, all this, how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? What's going on emotionally? Or is it something that's when we were younger kids or an older generation was always there but just never dealt with?
I think it's always been there. There was a saying, I'm from France, and the saying was, therapy is a rich man's problem. Like mental health is a rich man's problem. Only people who don't struggle, have the time to think about their self. But that's not true. Mental health everybody has mental health the same way that everybody has their physical health. And it's important to really take care of yourself, both mentally and physically, in order to optimize your life and your daily functioning.
And with JCS, talk about patients that you see, viewers at home that might be struggling or know someone that might be in crisis, they can reach out and this is non-denominational.
Correct. So we see everybody. The question was, I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is, who do you see on a daily basis?
We see everybody. So a lot of people come in with similar struggles as Zach, although the severity was pretty high for you. You had a lot of deaths in your family. We do see people of that range. But we also see people struggling with day-to-day things, postpartum depression, students in school that have difficulty, identity challenges, everyday life that happens where you need a little extra push, you need some help, you need some support. And yes, we'll hold you accountable, but we'll also hold your hand while doing it, and we'll walk you through it.
And Zach, you went through a long process of 5 years, and it was a consistent long-term therapy. And what does that mean, the support that you got for your healing process to move forward and be a creative artist and feel, integrated back into your life and into your soul again?
It was essential. Like, I don't think I would be here talking with you if that didn't happen. If it was just short-term care, or I think I really lacked a lot of mental tools to deal with life. It's not necessarily all the death. All the death was a big monster. There was a whole story behind this that would take hours to talk about. But also just waking up and feeling happy. Why do I feel sad? Or identifying emotions, or just basic stuff that's not necessarily on the Richter scale of like how bad of the crisis that I experienced, but just basic stuff. I think when you lose your immediate circle of family, I had no idea how much of a hole that was going to put in my heart. And there's nobody on earth that can fulfill that. My aunts, my uncles. So I needed to become my own family. And I needed a constant reinforcement once a week about these new ideas or what's going on. And what was cool was at some point in the process, the therapist says, so let's go over your treatment program. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, we're going through protocols, Zach. And I'm like, man, I'm so curious to hear what, and she lined out like, okay, so you're struggling with this, or we're doing this. And I was like, you sneaky lady, like so well done. I had no idea that there was protocol behind this therapy. It wasn't just we're talking. It wasn't like emotional dumping. I mean, that was there, but it was structured so that I could get through certain phases. She's like, okay, we got through phase 1, 2, and 3 of the video game. Now we're going to the next one. And I was like, this is incredible. Like I had a new respect for mental health because it was structured. It was organized. It wasn't just me rambling, or just needing a friend to talk to. It was like a very structured
regiment.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm impressed. And at some point, she's pushed me out of the nest. So enough. Now it's time to take all this stuff that we've learned and go do it. And she did it in her own way. That I was like a little upset at her because the way she did it wasn't like, hey, you graduated. She kind of poked me a little bit and said, you need to talk to your mom again, Zach. And I was like, what do you mean do I need to talk to my mom again? And she was like, and then the next week I very openly said to her, that shit you said to me last week, I got a bone to pick with you. And she's like, I'm very happy that this was your response. She's like, because you don't need this anymore. You got the tools, you're reading books, you're active in your life. go fly. Like, it was a bird, like, go, enjoy it.
And the little bird doesn't think it can fly, and then all of a sudden it flaps its wings and it's able to.
Oh my God. It's, yeah, I there's no words to describe the gratitude and the belief of that. So when people tell me I don't like mental health or I don't need that, I feel like pobrecito, like poor people. Like, you really think you don't need, and it's not like because you have a catastrophe in your life. It's just your parents are your first teachers. They can only give you so much unless your parents were like mental health professionals. And even then. They probably, like.
And then you go to therapy anyway.
Exactly. Forever. No. And I think, it's just nice to know that exists. And that if, God forbid, something ever happens or I need to come back, I can. And the door is open. So
And the door is always open for home, isn't it?
It's great.
Jehremi, I'm going to bring you in. You run the JCS, both the 211 Miami helpline, and the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Woof! Talk about that role.
So I think it's an important role for, I'm grateful to be in the position I am today, to be able to play such a crucial role for not just the community, but for when you speak on 988, it's a nationwide hotline that we answer for. But I would say just being in that role and being able to be the front line sometimes, maybe not for people like Zach that maybe missed out on where could I start this, where could I initiate and get some support. Not everybody always has all the courage to walk in an office, I think, at times, and go and ask for that support and be face to face with somebody that's going to challenge you and give you those steps that you need to overcome whatever it is that you're presenting issues that you came in for. So I think the role of running these two lines, 211 in an aspect where we're able to provide all types of resources to various communities, various populations within our community, anything from older adults seeking services, caregivers providing care for those older adults, people that just need resources for summer camps for the children, food instabilities, housing instabilities. So there's various resources that a lot of our community still doesn't know to this day. So being a part of that 211 Miami service is instrumental, I think, for our community, being able to provide those resources that a lot of our community still doesn't know how to connect to. And then more so just having a 3-digit number that you could just remember, just like 211, and then knowing that there has to be a resource out there for me that can kind of help me with what I need at the moment. On the other scope, the 988 Suicide Crisis Lifeline, same thing. I think it's just that bridge sometimes. Hearing Zach's story, we receive a lot of callers. I think the most intimidating thing is those that just don't know how to ask for help, or culture plays a big piece sometimes. And depending on how you're raised, sometimes I think social media sometimes and comparison, thinking, is my problem as big as Zach's problem? Are my worries, more minimal? Do I really need the help of, in such an extent? But knowing that everybody's crisis looks different at the end of the day. So just to have that supportive lines, those crisis intervention counselors 24/7, 7 days a week, I think that provides that, at least the foundation, and more so the frontier to be able to connect people like Zach if they do call in, but maybe they need a little bit more help on the other side and they're willing to get to the different aspect of, more long-term care, or whether that's short-term therapy, whatever it may be. And then that's where we have great dynamics like JCS offers through our behavioral health and what Jessica runs. So I love that aspect. So be able to provide the emotional support that they're just seeking at that moment, whether it's suicidal ideations, loneliness, feeling numb, hopeless, or just somebody that just needs a voice of support. They might not have their mother around no more, or their father, and they just need that voice of support. So being able to link them to that next level of care at a certain point.
There's been such a growing national awareness of suicide prevention and crisis intervention. From your experience, what happens when someone reaches out to the 988, and why can that first call be so life-changing and maybe saving a life?
Yeah, I think going back to why it could be just so important to be able to save a life is it gives them some breathing room when they have all these different stressors on them, to just have somewhere to begin and some somebody to listen to on the other side, to be able to provide their voice and be heard. I think that's a big piece to it. And then anybody experiencing or going through that process, especially to the 988 side, you're going to get the counselor that's trained in that crisis intervention work. You're going to get that counselor that is there and cares, and you're going to hear it through their empathy, their understanding of, of them trying to explore more of the situation that's going on, alongside from, kind of at least give you simple tools or some type of coping skills to at least try to de-escalate the situation is our main role, to at least make that crisis, a little bit less burdensome, so that when they leave that line, they feel a little bit better throughout their day. They could either get to the next couple hours, maybe get to the night, maybe the week itself. So I think that plays a crucial role. And then also just having the training, the proper counselors trained in aspects where calls might be a little more severe, and then they know the actual protocols, they know the resources that are out there aside from our resources, like mobile response team, different resources within the community-based organizations that provide these services that we're able to link them to as well, if they're open to it. So I think that plays a fundamental role too.
And it's interesting you say that your training is really very important for those that might be calling you. You've been with JCS since 2022. So talk a little bit about your training and your background, because you might be that first person that they would receive on the phone. Is that correct?
Definitely. So my background, I started as a clinician. I'm actually a licensed clinical social worker for the past 10 plus years. So me actually coming into my role as a clinical officer, I actually went through the dynamics, the beginning trainings of what the counselors would go through. And those trainings are a lot about, learning on how do we actively listen, and what does that incorporate? How do we engage with somebody that's, just venting about something, and not be closed off, not come off judgmental, but yet be open-minded and ask the right open-ended questions so that they're able to kind of voice it, and then just gradually do training to learning the de-escalation points. All right, could we connect them? Could we identify some supports within their lives, whether it is a parent, whether it is a friend, or, do they need a support group out there? And kind of getting them to identify the importance of support in itself, aside from coping mechanisms, whether that's exercise, whether it's just getting up in the morning and finding some time for yourself to walk your dog, but just touching base with them as briefly as we do get with them on those lines, to identify those key points, to kind of make somewhat of a short kind of safety plan in place to ensure that they can remain safe for that day.
And that's really, really important, that have that conversation. And as the clinical director of the services provided, talk about a little bit about your experience and how you bring that forward to being the clinical director.
So it's funny, when Jehremi was talking, I was just thinking about the rigorous training that they go through as 988 counselors, and how we should all be trained in, just not just mental health awareness, but how to listen to somebody, how to empathically bring yourself to where the other person is, and maybe validate what their experience is, even de-escalate the situation, knowing the warning signs of mental health issues.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that, the warning signs?
Sure. I would say a warning sign is anything that differentiates from somebody's norm. So if somebody is typically a little bit withdrawn and they kind of stay in their room, and then all of a sudden they start to become a little bit more engaged and happy and energetic, then that could be a sign of something going on. And then vice versa, if somebody's very social, outgoing, and then on the other side of that, or a little bit later, they start to be a little bit more withdrawn. So anything that differentiates from the norm. As human beings, we're creatures of habit. We like to kind of go through our routine, do what we need to do, but when something changes, and people notice, you'll notice, whether it's family, friends, coworkers, say something, see something, say something. Hey, what's going on with you? I'm a little concerned. We all go through it, even as mental health professionals, we're human beings. So everybody has days where they could use a friend, or somebody that says, what's going on? I'm seeing something and I just wanted to reach out and do you need help?
Dr. Jessica, what made you get into the mental health arena and want to move forward into your current position?
That's a good question.
Oh, I asked it.
It's a great
So
question.
I myself struggle with anxiety. I think we all do. But when I was younger, I had significant challenges. And I actually had my dad was very, very, in my life, he was like very influential. He always validated what I was going through, always had a, listening ear. And I think that was where I was like, you know what, I wanted to be the person that I needed growing up. And here I am, thank God, So.
I love that. I love that. And what would you tell your younger self?
You're okay, and there's help out there, and you can just reach out, and there's somebody that will be there to help you. It might not be the first person, it might not be the second person, but there's a therapist out there that's going to fit your needs, and you're going to get through this.
Zach, you've overcome a lot. One of probably many stories that come through the JCS. And what would you say to someone that might be listening today that needs help but is fearful, afraid of the stigma, maybe they're thinking that no one understands them? What would you say to our audience today?
It's tricky because usually what I've learned is when you are thinking about suicide or you don't want to be here, sometimes you don't want to say anything because you actually don't want to be here. So if you tell people, they're going to prevent you from doing it. So the first act to save your own butt is to tell anyone. And tell your cat. I mean, just out loud it. And I feel like what I've learned is we all have angels out there that we don't see. We don't talk about that. And I'm not super woo-woo about this, but I do believe that the power of the word is strong. So when you speak it, somehow the universe will provide what you're looking for. It might be a person, it might be somebody else. It's really tricky to speak when your voice is cut. So I think the first act of resilience, or you're fighting for yourself, is to let someone know, like, I don't want to wake up every day. That was what I said to friends. Is like, I'm having trouble waking up. I don't want to get up in the morning, which seemed like I'm just being like a lazy kid. It was deeper. I just had no motive. I didn't know why I was waking up. And I went through the process, tried, didn't work. And it was a profound moment because I was like, for sure God wants me to be here because I tried and it didn't work. So I knew that I had to face everything and recover, and like fear, fuck everything and run, or face everything and recover. I knew I was at this juncture where I had to face the music and deal with all the sad and all the things. And I didn't have a huge, big support system. It was just me. But at some point, you have to take ownership of your own life and say, I need help. And what people think about me, I would shout this from rooftops. Because,
but everybody's so worried about themselves, how
Correct.
they think, how they feel, that they're not really watching you, right?
Correct.
And it's also a confidential journey. Therapy is very
True.
individualized. It's very confidential. Nobody needs to know. I mean, what we tell our clients is if I see you on the street, I don't even have to acknowledge you, and I won't unless you acknowledge me first, because it's a very, very confidential individual.
That's important. Is that the secret society? That what you share
underground.
here, stay. Yeah.
We have only a couple of minutes left. Let's talk about what would you want an audience to know. We'll move forward with you, Jehremi, that might be listening. The takeaway for today for healing, support, the importance of community connection that you would want our audience to know, that JCS and any of the services that you provide for an audience.
I would say the most important that I would want just everyone to know about is that sometimes getting help is the most intimidating thing in the world. Just identifying or being able to vocalize, that we might need help. But I would also say that the access is out there more than ever now to be able to get some help or at least start somewhere, especially through the lines that I run, which is why I'm so grateful to be in my position. But to be able to have lines like 988 or 211, if my family's running and I have no groceries, and it might lead me to feel a certain way, but could we address the first issue at hand? So picking up the phone, and I say just knowing that there is help out there. There's help through at least 2 lines that we provide, the 211 helpline as well as the 988 suicide crisis line. And again, I think everything crisis for everyone looks different. So never minimize what you think you're going through. I think it's important to acknowledge and understand that if it's something I'm struggling through, if there's a difference that I see in myself that I might not be normal today in any sense of the word, I think at that time is the point where you need to do something different. And if it's just picking up the phone and dialing into 988, having somebody to speak to, and that's the start, I would say to start there.
Dr. Jessica?
Yeah, same thing. I want to echo Jehremi's words. Like, the first step is always the hardest, but call us, 305-576-6550. There's no contract. You can pick up and leave if you don't like it, but try it. Mental health and awareness and therapy is life-changing.
And Zach?
I think if COVID taught us anything is that we need each other. Full stop. Whether mental health, and till this moment, I didn't know that there was a number to call. I didn't have the 3 numbers to call. Thank God I had a good friend who I was able to confess to. But it's good to know that exists, because human beings, we have this amazing power. Just knowing that there's somebody who can care for 10 minutes on the other end of the phone could change your life. I mean, I think that is more profound than I think we realize. It's just reaching out, and a hand being there is like, you're on your way. You don't even know.
It's really been a pleasure being with you today, and I appreciate your story, and I'm so blessed that I feel blessed that you're blessed with moving forward in your life and being productive and feeling satisfied within your skin, and for the support system that JCS provides. It's a wonderful opportunity for our community if they need that. So if you're struggling, or someone else that is, remember that you're not alone. Support is available through the Jewish Community Services, through the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, and other community services out there. Reaching out can be the first step towards hope and healing. And I want to thank you for being my guest today. I'm Fara Sax. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great day.